Okay, alright. It's been a couple days since I beat the game, so I am collecting my thoughts as I do at the end of everything. Skyward Sword. Freaking Skyward Sword. I don't... What a strange installment in the Zelda series. It was extremely difficult. It was extremely difficult picking a thumbnail for that last, video, for the finale video, because I mean, so much happened. I picked a very simple one that I think encompasses everything. I picked Link and Fi coming face to face for the final time, because that kind of goes in line with the name of the video. But I think the May We Meet Again in a New Life. I mean, that's what it's all for, right? That's what it's all about, isn't it? In a way. The whole game is essentially, I mean, it's a prequel. It's a prequel, but it's a prequel to everything. It's a prequel. It's the inception of a cycle that has continued. That continues for centuries past the events of the game, right? That has been going on for decades in our world, right? And I think that line, "The May We Meet Again in a New Life," that encompasses what the whole game, that's like what the whole game is building up to, essentially, right? It's like this is where it starts. This is why there's always a Link, there's always a Zelda, and even why there's always a Ganondorf. Of course, there is no Ganondorf here, but there is Demise, and I mean, I think visually speaking, you can see a little bit of a carryover, but then also there's a tragedy to it, as per usual. There's a tragic nature of the fact that Ganondorf is essentially cursed with this demonic power. He's essentially cursed to be a reincarnation of the Demon King, no matter what. Now, it's sort of like, but I think what's cool about Ganondorf is that he, in many of his iterations, in the 3D games at least, he uses this curse in his own eyes as a blessing to pursue his own personal goals, which are to rule Hyrule, which are to establish his people as the dominant ruler, like the rulers of the whole land. Although it seems like time and time again, it seems often like he cares less for the Gerudo people and more for less for the Gerudo people and more for just personal power, his personal power in everything. And maybe part of that is, which is why, you know, he often, when you see the people, the army he is leading, it's demons, it's monsters, it's beasts, you know. which could very well allude to Demise's influence over him. Now, obviously, everything in retrospect, right? Because Skyward Sword is a prequel. It is not like this game came out first and informed everything after it. Everything that came before it informed this game, right? Which is the interesting nature of prequels. Do I think it's do I think it's a successful prequel? I do, and I think what it does, and I think where its success comes from, is the story and the characters, ultimately. I think they have a great Link. This is one of the best characterizations of Link, I feel. Even if maybe he's not my personal favorite, I feel like he is more fleshed out. He is given more personality, if not only in the choices, in the dialogue choices you can make, which you often don't have. You often are not given choices that have so much personality in them and so much implication and subtext to them as to like what kind of person Link is. Yeah, and I think this is one of the best. If anything, as far as like the pairing goes, although to be fair, I mean Wind Waker and Breath of the Wild would definitely give this game a run for its money as far as the best Link and Zelda pairing. But I think the reason why this Link and Zelda pairing feels so particularly good is because it is, as I listen to the song Romance in the Air, it is, you know, it is a love story, essentially, right? Like, it's pretty clear that these two have feelings for each other. Here's the thing, I think it's important to highlight that they have a close bond, specifically as friends. I think that's a really important thing. That's in the forefront. And then beyond that, there's an implication that they have, like, they harbor deeper feelings for one another. I think that's important because I think oftentimes media, when they have two characters that are supposed to have a bond, they're supposed to be deeply connected and personally invested in each other. They tend to get lost in the sauce and make it just focused around the relationship between the two characters. And then oftentimes what I've noticed that when two characters finally do get together, they often, one of them or both of them often tend to get shafted. Part of that might be because it's like, well, where do you take characters at? This is the arc. That's their arc. Where do you take characters after their arc is over? And it's like, well, you make them people still, with like their own personal thoughts and feelings and motivations, right? Like, you gotta still make them people that do their own things. Don't make it all relationship. Don't make them just the partner one and partner two, right? Like, come on now. But no, I think this game does a good job. I think I appreciate this game's focus on the fact that they are childhood friends, and that makes it like they make a point to make that like that is what is important here. That like regardless of anything, Link would set on this journey because Zelda is his friend. But then what I also like is that Zelda is not sitting idly by. She's not a princess in a castle. She is on her own journey. And I think with the credit sequence, which is really cool, I really appreciate the credit sequence, showing her journey throughout this game. It almost feels like maybe we were supposed to be cutting back and forth between the two, right? Now, how would that have worked? Would that have felt good? I don't know. Maybe in a cutscene format, you know, get like a sneak peek of what the area that's upcoming would be like. But as far as gameplay goes, that would mean trekking through each area again, and it would totally not be in an interesting way, as we've seen from how many times we had to trek through every single area. All the areas are very linear. They do not lend themselves to backtracking. Nintendo, please. But yeah, it's super cool to see her go on her journey and to know that like she has her own business, she has her own duty and responsibility and thing to do throughout the course of this game. And she's been doing it the whole time. I like the feeling that you're always one step behind her, and even when you see her, she, like, you know, just kind of falls through your fingers every single time. Every single time you're reaching out and you think you're about to reconnect again. It's just no. She's got her own stuff going on, and then ultimately to ultimately have that lead to the reveal that she is the goddess reincarnating, that she's harboring the goddess's memories and thoughts and feelings, and that she has sort of transcended beyond just being Zelda, your friend, and that was on purpose. I had completely forgotten about. I'm so impressed, and I'm so excited by this game's decision to have the goddess apologize. To have the goddess apologize to Link, to acknowledge that it isn't fair, the responsibility that's being placed upon his shoulders. That it's not fair, it's not something that he obviously asked for. It's not something he deserved. And to make it very clear that, like, having Zelda as a chosen one, having Link be a chosen one, again, time is wibbly wobbly, right? Time is like wibbly wobbly. So, like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? It's like, well, why is Link the destined chosen one? Oh, because he was always fated to be the chosen one. It was written in the stars. Okay, but how did the stars know? Oh, because that was how it was always. Link is a chosen one because he was always going to be the chosen one. But then it's interesting to then have Zelda be chosen specifically to motivate Link, and kind of vice versa, right? It's like they sort of become motivators for each other in a way, right? More so Zelda for Link than Link for Zelda, because Zelda, you know, awakens. But then also, I mean, Zelda also just serves as a vessel in general, which is probably some chosen one mumbo jumbo. It just so happened that Link and Zelda were linked, and that worked in the benefit of everybody. So good for them, I suppose. But to acknowledge that to state fairly plainly that it is manipulation. It is manipulation. To have that stated plainly, to have the goddess apologize to Link for that, but then even state, like, this is a war. Like, this is a war. Yeah, to characterize it as a war, to just state it and describe it in such a way, it puts a lot of things into perspective. I mean, it puts the whole timeline into perspective, right? It is this eternal war against this ancient evil that keeps returning in one form or another. And it's this war between the gods and this evil, and the only, like, the weapon that the only weapon they can have to combat this being is are mortals, like Link and Zelda. And then I think what's interesting too is that it says that gods cannot the detail that gods cannot use the Triforce. The Triforce is specifically, seemingly meant to be used by mortals. To drop that, and then to think about the fact that Ganondorf, being some sort of reincarnation of Demise, in the same way that Zelda is a reincarnation of the goddess Helia, both mortals, to drop that detail, and then to consider the fact that maybe after his defeat, whatever was left of Demise, as he cursed Link and Zelda and the goddess and said that I will always return. We will do this till the end of time. Like, you and me will battle till the end of time. It is interesting to imagine that Demise may have taken up Hylia on her play in order to wield the Triforce. Hylia had to take a mortal form. Perhaps that's what Demise ultimately did too, in the form of Ganondorf, because Ganondorf is able to wield a piece of the Triforce, and that immediately places that places Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf / Demise on an equal playing field, right? So suddenly, some incarnation of Demise is able to use the Triforce. That's interesting. I don't know. It adds a lot, and I think what's really interesting about this game as well is that, like, you can see playing it again. I was shocked at how much Breath of the Wild I could feel in its DNA. However, Breath of the Wild, I feel, took the right things and used them in the right ways. For instance, in this game, like, this game had ideas that were really cool, but didn't get utilized often, or hardly at all, or very effectively. For instance, stamina. Interesting idea, having stamina like as a limiter on you. Is it used effectively? No. All it does is hinder you and slow you down, needlessly so, right? Like, oh, I need to sprint from this place to this place. Okay, well, we're going to slow you down. What? Why? Why are you? What's the point of, like freaking in Elden Ring, right? When you're out of battle, you can sprint endlessly because, hey, guess what? We have this big open place that we need you to sprint through. Is Link's normal running speed that much slower? No, but because they give you a faster form of movement, you're left sitting there wondering why you aren't just moving that quickly all the time. It's like, okay, well, you can't spam spin attacks. Then. It's like, okay, well, because most of the time I'm fighting enemies that have very clearly defined directional inputs, and but because I can also attack as quickly as I want, I kind of don't want to use spin attacks. How often did I, except for the very last battle sequence, how often did I ever use spin attacks? Except often on accident. I would often run out of stamina because I would accidentally spam spin attacks by trying to do directional inputs too quickly, and doing false inputs and doing spin attacks, right? Yeah, it's like I don't. What's the point of that? I don't know. It's so that's odd. Having crafting materials is interesting, although they make a lot of the crafting materials just kind of like random. They just kind of put them places. Like, oh, we'll get amber stones are just around. Tumbleweeds pop up around here occasionally. Here is an ancient flower. They sprout in like 5 places. And they just respawn there every time. As opposed to Breath of the Wild, where it feels very like getting crafting materials, getting herbs, getting flowers, all that kind of stuff feels like a very natural process of, could have been in a lot of it feels like very natural as you collect stuff. They're not just like, here is a amber relic sitting on the floor right here. Like a fully modeled object sitting on the floor that looks completely out of place, It also wasn't particularly difficult to. I went out of my way to gather materials maybe one time, Drop rates are also pretty awful, but that never seemed to hinder my ability to collect things or to upgrade things very, very much. Money was another thing where it's like the value of money in this game. Money is way more valuable in this game than it has been in a while. it's Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, and this game and Skyward Sword all have a pretty high value point on money. There's a lot of stuff to spend it, a decent amount of things to spend it on. It's pretty important. If you want 100%, then you like need a lot of money. In this game, though, it kind of became no object. It sort of really didn't become a big deal. But yeah, I feel like. But I think what's important to keep in mind is that if it wasn't for this game, I don't think we would get Skyward Sword. I mean, I don't think we would get Breath of the Wild in the form it's in, and that would be a shame because Breath of the Wild is really, really good. I would say Skyward Sword walked so that Breath of the Wild could fly. You know, it was like they were testing a lot of new things out. They tested a lot of new stuff out in Skyward Sword. And they threw it all at the dartboard and saw what stuck, and figured out how to rebind the rest. And I think that's fine. I think that this game is ultimately good. Not only that, I think it's really good. I really do believe that. I think it has a lot of shortcomings. I think the thing is it has more shortcomings than the other games, right? Here's the thing, a lot of people have problems with Breath of the Wild, and we'll get into that kind of stuff as we get there. But I feel like the problems that Breath of the Wild has in people's eyes compared to other Zelda games, it makes up for in the things that it does really well. Now, do I feel the same way about Skyward Sword? I think Skyward Sword is really good for a person who is a big fan of Zelda games. I think if you're a really big fan of Zelda games, then you have no reason to not play this game. You should totally play this game. You can play it, you can enjoy it, you can understand it, it's great. But, do I think that this should be somebody's first Zelda game? No. Definitely not. Not even with the really good combat. Honestly, the combat's probably some of the most engaging combat up till this point in the Zelda series. Cause it's like their brain expanded with the combat techniques in Twilight Princess, which occasionally I got to do some pretty flashy looking stuff in Twilight Princess. Although none of it was like super engaging or interesting. I never had to use most of that stuff hardly at all, right? But in this game, they created a combat system where you do have to be paying attention. You do have to be paying attention to what enemy you're fighting. You have to be paying attention to where you are in relation to that enemy, and you have to be mindful of your spacing, mindful of where you're swinging. Oftentimes, you know, enemies would parry your stuff. They would block and then attack immediately after. Sometimes you could use that to your advantage, though. Yeah. Oh, another thing they added in this game that is not used often. It's kind of up to you whether you want to make much use of it, but like being able to parry with the shield, not difficult at all. Could be very useful though. Is more useful, I would say, in Breath of the Wild, where you have parries, you also have perfect dodges, you can deflect laser beams if you parry correctly, right? But in this game, I mean, like, yeah, being able to attack, mess up, and then being able to parry after if you're paying attention, if you're on point, if your reactions are on point, it feels really good. It feels super good. Gold star for combat. Overall gameplay, I mean, gosh. I mean, the gameplay is fine, and it's just fine, which is a shame. Nothing sparked, no moment in this game sparked the pure bliss of sailing in the ocean in Wind Waker, or getting to a new area and exploring it in Twilight Princess, or discovering the caves in Twilight Princess, or doing side quests in Majora's Mask, or just vibing out in Ocarina of Time, you know? I don't know why this game doesn't hit so hard. I saw somebody talk about the music. I think the music is really good. It's like objectively really good. But they kind of commented on how, because it's fully orchestrated, it tends to gets a little lost in the span of Zelda music, of like classic Zelda music, right? It gets kind of lost because it's all just big orchestra pieces. Now, I agree and disagree. I agree that for the most part, the fact that what's cool is that there's a lot of unique and original songs that play at certain moments in the game. What's unfortunate is that they're really good in the moments that they're in, but like they're not super memorable. I remember a couple of key. I remember the main theme, mainly the beginning, the ba 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 ba. It's like, that's awesome. That's like amazing, right? I remember Kolokto's theme, obviously. Kolokto / Moldarak. Unreal. Best, has to be best boss theme. I don't know if anybody beats it. I think there's rivals for sure. There's some like stuff in Wind Waker for sure that rivals it. Some stuff in Twilight Princess that rivals it. And then Gate of Time. Gate of Time obviously just stands out because Gate of Time feels different. Gate of Time and Fee's theme both feel different. And I think also what helps is that the moments they're used in. It's like the use of courage throughout Twilight Princess. You know, I think, honestly, I was gonna say, what motifs are used like often throughout the game? And I think the one theme, oddly enough, that gets used in like multiple different formats and different tones is Groos's theme. The super dramatic version of Groos's theme that plays right before you go back to see Zelda, where like his arc gets completed and he's like, hey, you know what? I'm not gonna rain on your parade. This is you and Zelda's thing. You go have your moment. Tell her I said what's up. Unbelievable. And it plays the super dramatic version of his theme with the wailing violins and stuff. It's amazing. And then they use Groos's theme throughout like multiple other parts of the game, and it hits every time. Let's talk about Groos. We're talking about good characters. Groos, crazy inclusion. So sad that like he is not a person who's going to get reincarnated all throughout time and space. Groos deserves to come back in some way, shape, or form. Let Groos get reincarnated. I don't care what it takes. I like how he's positioned as the he is positioned as the power triangle of the Triforce, right? He's your rival. He seems like maybe he's just going to be your antagonistic towards you, but like but my gosh, what they did instead of having him just be an antagonistic force, his arc throughout the game, it's inspiring. So inspiring that I've, you know, maybe borrowing a bit from it for a certain character that I'm kind of falling in love with, that I'm writing for something that's in the works. Not gonna talk about anything too substantial yet, but I mean, yeah, that's how good I think Groos is that Groos is like an inspirational character of like, hey, this is how you write a guy like this. Not only just a good character, a good male character who comes around and grows and becomes like a better person because he realizes where his shortcomings were. He's like infatuated with Zelda, but he's like the macho man, right? He's that macho man kind of. He's the Gaston, where he's like, well, I mean, I like Zelda because she's pretty girl, and I'm big man, and big man ends up with pretty girl. That's just how it goes, how it works. So I'm gonna save Zelda. I'm gonna do this. Well, very Gaston, now that I think about it. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. She's gonna fall in love with me. He tells Link over and over again, you better back up, bud. I see you coming in and out of town. But then, like, the first time he sees what Link has been doing on a daily basis for like a month now, the first time he comes face to face with what the trials ahead really are, like what they really entail, he's mortified. He's shaken to his core. His whole life, his whole evaluation on life changes. He's like, oh, I couldn't do anything. I didn't even try to do anything. Like, I looked into the abyss and I blinked, you know? For the first time in his life. Poor guy. But then he comes around. He realizes, okay, well, I'm not gonna just sit down though. I shouldn't just do that. I can do something. I can help in some way. And he finds a way to help. And without him, we would have lost for sure, multiple times. The world would have faded into darkness multiple times. Yeah, seeing Grace come around. And then you know, ultimately him realizing that, like, and something that I think is very important, right, is that, like, you don't, and I said this while playing, but I'm also gonna echo it here again. You don't have to be amazing. You don't have to be the main character. You don't have to be the #1 guy. You don't have to be amazing. You just have to try. You have to put your best. All you have to do is put your best foot forward and do your best. That's it. That's it. That's like, it's about making an effort. It's not about being the best. It's just about making the effort, you know? So he has a really amazing arc. I love Impa warming up to Link after Link comes in and saves everybody, saves the day. I love that sequence so much. There's so much good. And any cutscene like tends to be some of the best parts of the game. I think really, like, that's what kind of becomes the motivator at a certain point, is less the in-between stuff and more getting to the big moments, which is very weird for Zelda, because Zelda is usually very much about the in-between stuff. The in-between stuff is usually like the bread and butter, and then the big moments are like the icing on the cake, you know? So it is strange. It is strange to have a game where, like, the sole motivator it is story driven. It is, I've said this before, Twilight Princess is more story driven than other games, but Skyward Sword is the story driven game, period. And then, you know, no wonder it's crazy to think that the next game they made after this is the most open-ended, least story-driven game out of any of them. Breath of the Wild is essentially a 3D version of the 2D games of the very first game. I stand by that, too. I mean, you know, people say, like, oh, well, Breath of the Wild isn't enough Zelda. And it's like, well, I don't know, because in some ways, you're right. It's not. It's missing a lot of Zelda in its DNA, but then at the same time, at its core, sometimes Breath of the Wild feels like the most Zelda game, which is strange. Skyward Sword feels like just about as much of an outlier in the 3D series than or the series in general than Breath of the Wild. Oh, as much as Breath of the Wild as well. It's kind of weird. It's weird because Skyward Sword on the surface feels ultimately extremely traditional. It's almost traditional to a fault where it transcends into something that's not like Zelda. Yeah, Skyward Sword is almost like so traditional that it becomes less like a Zelda game. You know, because like each Zelda game has its twist, has its turn. Skyward Sword's big twist is that you can fly. There's like a sky section, but then they don't do anything with it. There's nothing to do in the sky except go and open chests occasionally. it's not populated like Wind Waker. You know, it's not populated like Wind Waker. There's no side mini dungeons to do like in Ocarina of Time, or like no caves like in Ocarina of Time or Twilight Princess. It both like it. They try to do big open island map like Wind Waker, and they don't hit the mark or get it even close. And then they try to do like Twilight alternate realm sections with the Silent Realms, reminiscent of Twilight Princess, but then they're just okay, and they don't really hit the mark. And then you do that 4 times. You do it 4 times, and it's essentially just a do you remember the layout of the map? Like, what was really this? Was it much of a skill challenge? Maybe a little bit sometimes. I failed one, I'll admit that. I failed one, but kind of just because of some BS, some like major BS. I did every other one on the first try. I pretty much did the one I failed on the first try too. I was only missing like 2 things, 2 beads of light. Yeah, I don't know. And then everything else in the game is kind of like okay. Everything's designed to be gone through once, and then they make you go through it multiple times, which is a huge mistake. I would have liked a lot more unique levels. Bless Gerudo Desert. Gerudo Desert just gives. Lenevu Desert. Lenevu Desert just gives, and it doesn't stop giving. Bless that desert. Best part of the game. Consistently, every time we returned, it was a new amazing thing. It was awesome. What? And like what a shame though. You know? Kind of a shame. That is sort of a shame, but I don't know. There's not a whole lot to do in any of the areas and stuff, right? Not a whole lot to do, not a whole lot to see. They're very contained. They feel very much like hallways. Everything feels very locked in, claustrophobic, like a hallway, you know? It didn't have that big, sweeping, wide open area to traverse. Like in Twilight Princess or Wind Waker, or even Ocarina of Time. Majora's Mask had like pretty huge, interesting areas, like layouts and designs and stuff like that. I mean, holy crud, the areas in this game, everything's color coded. You got green, you got red, you got yellow. Those are your areas. And then if you're in the sky, you got like cream color. Oh my gosh, the sky is like so boring. The sky is really boring. It's just big empty clouds all over the place. It's just cream colored clouds covering the whole screen with like little to nothing in it. It's such a shame. It's such a shame. Quick break. Quick side venture. I ate food, and then there was a Nintendo Direct that showed a bunch of crazy stuff. I'm not the kind of person to sit down and gush about every single video game stream that happens. I feel like every time a Nintendo Direct happens, like there are 10 people that I watch videos from who make a video on it, and I'm like, at a point, I'm like, how many people can I watch talk about a Nintendo Direct? You know? However, we got more Tears of the Kingdom. Another Tears of the Kingdom trailer. At this point, I don't need any more trailers. I didn't even really think they were going to show as much, as substantial of a trailer as they did show. It was still both extremely revealing and extremely vague at the same time, if that makes any sense. But I'm going to do my best to push any of those trailers out of my mind while I play Breath of the Wild, which is next. It's next! Oh gosh, it's so weird. That's so weird. Oh, this was supposed to take an extremely long time and potentially never get done. And now I'm on Breath of the Wild. Actually, here's the thing. I didn't think I was going to make it in time. I didn't make it for Metroid Dread. I didn't make it close for Metroid Dread. However, I'm just starting. I'll be starting Breath of the Wild in February. Maybe not February. I might wait, hold off, refresh my body and soul and mind, do other things. I'll be having videos coming out all the way through February. You might be getting this video in freaking closer to March. I don't know. I might start in March. It depends. Either beginning of March, midway through March, recording Breath of the Wild. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe a little bit here and there. Maybe on weekends. I can record a little bit on the weekends. Breath of the Wild is going to work a little differently. It's going to work a little differently. There's not a clear, clean-cut way to divide, to divvy up videos like there has been. There's not like... There are not many stretch goals or chapters or landmarks like there are in these games, where it's like, oh, I can do the area, that's an episode, and then I can do the temple, that's an episode, and then I can do side quests, that's an episode. In Breath of the Wild, it's as much as anything you do is up to you. So I'll probably go back to having just an amount of time I record for, probably like an hour to 2 hours max. It depends how caught up I get. And I'll just be vibing the whole time. And like I said, no, I'm not going to be using a guide for Breath of the Wild. I'm just going to be using an interactive map that'll let me know where shrines and Korok seeds are, although I cannot promise that I'm going to get all of the Korok seeds. If it starts getting real close to Tears of the Kingdom and I'm still sitting in Breath of the Wild collecting Korok seeds, considering those two games... Here's the thing, I would like to finish Breath of the Wild with at least a month and a half buffer before Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom comes out on the 12th of May. So if I finish Breath of the Wild sometime, maybe beginning of April, that leaves me with March. Oh my gosh, it's so close. It's so unbelievably close. Okay, so maybe I start in February, work my way through it in March, finish sometime in April with with weeks before Tears of the Kingdom comes out. I can rejuvenate my mind, because I mean, I don't know. Truthfully, who knows whether Tears of the Kingdom is going to be its complete own thing, or whether it's going to be Breath of the Wild again. Here's the thing, if it's just more Breath of the Wild, I personally would not mind that, but that isn't going to feel good coming off of Breath of the Wild immediately, you know? Coming off of Breath of the Wild and then waiting for like 6-ish years of development time before Tears of the Kingdom comes out, that makes sense. That works out just fine, right? Yeah, people can easily forget what Breath of the Wild was like. Although, I mean, a lot of the people are still doing playthroughs of Breath of the Wild. So if Tears of the Kingdom is the exact same, I can't imagine it's going to be. But, anywho, that was a ramble and a rant. Back to Skyward Sword. There's just, I don't know, there's a lot of minds in a lot of different places. They also announced Pikmin 4. This actually works out. Pikmin 4 is going to be coming out in... let's see, July. It's going to be coming out on the 23rd of July. So potentially, well, hopefully, if I finish Tears of the Kingdom, I do intend to record. As of right now, I intend to record Tears of the Kingdom. If I finish Tears of the Kingdom, I start work on it from May through June. It's not long. It's not long before July. I want to do crud. This is hard. I wanted to do a Pikmin Legacy. I can have them go side by side. I might have to. I might have to. That might be good. That might be good from like a keep my brain fresh perspective too, you know? I've been playing a lot of Zelda and I've been loving it, but I've been playing a lot of Zelda. You know? Zelda. Skyward Sword, I will say, has such a whimsical nature to it. I've said it a couple times, but it has such a whimsical, fantastical feeling to it and vibe to it. It feels very big, epic. It feels like a storybook, you know? It feels like a legend, you know? It really does put the title, The Legend of Zelda, into perspective, though. Why is every game The Legend of Zelda, specifically? It's because Zelda is Hylia, and Hylia is why any of this happens. Hylia is the crux. And because Hylia is the crux of everything, Zelda is the crux of everything, you know? Doesn't that just work? You know, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking as I record this, do I like this? No, I do. I opened up the image of Fee and Link looking at each other. I do like that as the thumbnail. There's so many things happen in the final episode of the series, but I called the episode "May We Meet Again." I think that line with that image is perfect. It's a perfect send off to it. Because, like, you know, here's the thing. I really like the idea. I really loved the sort of semi-reveal that Girahim is to Demise as Fee is to you. It's a weapon to swordsman relationship. It's a master servant relationship. Except I think in Fee's final dialogue, what she reveals is why we succeed over Girahim and Demise. Girahim and Demise are very selfish people. They're very self-focused. Girahim wants one thing, and he sacrifices everything, including himself, to achieve it. Demise wants one thing, and he sacrifices his own servants and everything in order to achieve it, you know? Link is very selfless. He has his own goals. He knows what he wants, but time and time again throughout his journey, he helps and comes to the aid of others. And I think Fee's note, or final comment on, I'm going to repeat to you the words that I have heard many times, that I've recorded many times on our journey. Thank you very much, Link. May we meet again in another life. And that's, you know, that is just lovely. That is just lovely. You know, it's like Fee, I still think Fee could have been so much more, especially because, like, that scene hits, but imagine how much harder it would hit if they made Fee a person. You can have a very analytical, like a very cold analytical, even like robotic kind of character and still pull heart out of them. Because that's a very unique perspective to have on the world. But the thing about Fee is that she really did act like the servant of somebody. She did not act like the partner of somebody. So oftentimes she would rarely, she maybe like once or twice ever, gave us her perspective on something. There's only like a couple times where you see a crack in her armor a little bit, and you see her like open up just a little bit. She's like the ellipses after the robot, like dedicates its life to her. After Scrapper dedicates his life to her. Her passing comment on the tenacity of Skirvo, the robot pirate that you fight. You know, there's like... There's things, there's moments, for sure, right? But, yeah, there's things, there's moments for sure, but not nearly enough. It could have been so much more. They could have done so much more with her. It is a shame, I feel. But that's not to say it's a complete failure. She's not a failure of a character. She's a very specific character, you know? She's a very specific character, very specific to this story. And I feel as if ultimately I come away positively. I come away with positive feelings for this game and its story and its characters. It still lands. It still lands for me. It lands like it did, just about as well as it did the first time I played it. 'Cause I walked away from it the first time I played it with very positive feelings. But even at that point, I was becoming a little game critic myself even back then. I still remember having the problems I had with it and why I was having those problems. The repetitive nature, having to return and backtrack through the same areas over and over again. The very linear nature of all the areas and stuff. I mean, good heavens, we're about to enter the most open game in the whole series, and that's saying something, because I mean, Wind Waker at a point starts to feel pretty open. I'm gonna be honest. But yeah, I mean, what a time though. What a wonderful time though it was. Also, especially since I had truly forgotten a lot of beats, especially towards the end. So getting to certain beats, certain plot points, the conversation between Zelda and Link after being reunited, Impa's passing. That's something I wanted to talk about. That's something I really wanted to talk about. There's this game has strong themes of what the individual wants compared to what the individual is tasked with, you know. It has a lot built into its narrative, especially towards the end, about it's a story about people with an immense weight on their shoulders. People with an immense sense of duty and responsibility, and with a task at hand, and sort of what you give and how much you have to give of yourself sometimes to accomplish that task. And about how there is no choice. Is that when you're in a it's characters who know that they're in a story that has already been foretold from the very beginning. You know that this was predestined, that the goddess is sitting at the edge of time, and she knows how everything unfolds. It's just a matter it's just a matter of turning the next page for these characters. So there's like this overwhelming sense of inevitability with how things unfold for everybody. When Link constantly gets separated from Zelda at every turn, when even in there's a tragedy even in Girahim's when you fight him the last time. In his words when he says, do you think I can't beat you? Do you really think that I can't beat you? And then he just stops and he says, What are you? Because he realizes, I can't beat you. And I don't know why. There's no reason for it. There's no reason that I shouldn't be able to kill you easily. You're just a human. But it's because Girahim the entire time, from the very beginning, from when he sort of shifts destiny slightly, he smears the canvas a little bit when he sends that tornado up and sends Zelda plummeting down. But everything self-corrects. It's like that idea that if you go back in time and change something, I can't remember what story or what show or what movie did this, but there was one that involved time travel, but no matter what you would change in the past, time would always correct itself to make sure things ended up just about the same way as they did. Maybe slightly different, but just about the same way. It's like that's what Girahim was watching happen. That's what was happening to him the entire game. It's funny because he, just like everybody else, has no control over fate, truly. There is no choice, there is no option. He is going to keep pursuing his path, and he is ultimately going to fail, and there's nothing he can do about it. So watching him at the end grapple with that reality, his confused, his manic expression when he shows up and kidnaps Zelda, and before walking through the gate of time, and he looks at you, and he's not smiling, he's not joking, he's not laughing, he's not playing around anymore. He just looks at you and says, this was funny at first, but the joke's gone on way too long. I don't understand who or what you are, or why you're here, or why you keep getting married, or how you keep getting in my way. But I want to be done. He just wants to be done, And he died thinking that he succeeded, because he did. Technically, he succeeded. But ultimately, because it was fated to be so, he failed. He died thinking that he achieved something, but ultimately failed all the same. It's a story about people fighting against the inevitability of time. Time. These games always come back. It always comes back to time. It always comes back to time. And how it moves. No matter what you do, it just goes on without you. And how nobody can stop it. Not a human, not a chosen one, not a goddess, not even a demon. Nobody can stop time. And the melancholy when everything comes to an end, you hit such a high watching Link and Zelda be reunited, Groose being reunited with the two of them all being reunited together, talking, laughing together. Only for things to crumble all over again. And then such a sadness when, at the end of everything, Link's partner Fee and Zelda's partner Impa have to say goodbye because their job is over. or because they still have a job to do, and they are dedicated and are not going to move from the path because nobody can move from this path. Because and of course not, you know? Every single person here was placed here at this time, in this destiny, was in this fated day, was placed there because they were the kind of people to never not act in the exact way that they do. Link was always going to go after Zelda, which is why Zelda was always going to be the chosen vessel for Hylia. Why she was always going to be the one whisked away on an adventure, so that Link would follow. So that Groose would follow Link. So that Impa was always going to be, the servant was always going to be the right hand, because Zelda's right hand, because Impa was a Sheikah and was always going to follow the path, no matter what. Fi was going to be the right hand of Link, because Fi was made in such a way that she would never break from that path as well, just like Impa. There were two people who were they were the perfect candidates because they would always follow fate. They would always follow the will of the goddess because there was a job to be done, and they were the ones to do it. And there was no breaking that. And so to get to the end of all of it, and to hear Fi say, "I'm going to go into a sleep with no end," and to have her say that the feeling that she has coming to that point is happiness. She says, I don't understand. She's like, I don't understand the ways. I don't understand the human. But I believe that this feeling I am feeling right now is closest to the one you call happiness. At the end of everything, she's being confronted with the fact that she will never awake again. She will never see Link again. She will never be outside of that sword ever again. And she says she feels happiness because her job is over and she saw it through to the end. And then to have Impa say, I need to stay here to watch over the sword, and I need to stay here to watch over the gate, to make sure nobody ever uses either of these things for anything ever again. You know what I just realized? I don't know why that sword. What happened to the Master Sword? How did it get up into the? How did it get up into the Temple of the Goddess? If Link placed it in the Temple of Hylia? That's one of those timey. They got a little wibbly wobbly with time. This was not a time travel focused narrative. This was not a time travel focused show. I do not understand why. Well, because technically we placed the sword down and. Oh wait, yeah. Wait, so we placed the sword down and we defeated Demise permanently and sealed him permanently in the sword in the past. Does that make it? Well, but then Fi went to sleep in the sword, but then we get the sword in the future. But if Girahim died and we sealed him in the past, and we sealed Demise in the past, wait, wouldn't that mean? Wouldn't that mean that none of this should have ever happened? This is why time travel is utter nonsense. Because this doesn't make any sense. Maybe we're talking about diverging timelines. Maybe that's what we're dealing with now. Zelda does that a lot. With diverging timelines of, oh, you did a thing in the past and now that's its own timeline. You're going to go back to a different past now. You're going to your original timeline. That's what they did in Ocarina of Time. That's how they explained it. So maybe that's actually, to be fair, that would make sense for Skyward Sword to have done the same thing. They totally didn't, because that's not how the Zelda timeline looks like. But oh well. I don't know. Who knows? Anyways, to have Impa say, I'm going to stay here alone for centuries now. And she did, and we know she did because we meet her as an old woman. And the fact that she stayed around just long enough to be reunited, truly reunited with Zelda again. After all those years, she gets to see Zelda again. And Zelda comes up to her. And all she gets to say is, see, I told you we would meet again. And then she's gone. She just fades away. I mean, her job was over. And she saw it through to the end. What is there to do at that point? Anything that was keeping her up, surely she had expended, so she's gone. And so Fi and Impa fade away. But yet they keep coming back time and time again in the future. In a new life. May we meet again in a new life. So there's this melancholy, and oh my gosh, the look on everybody's faces when Impa's gone. But then back, they still pull you back to the levity and to show you that they still get to walk out into a new day free of evil. For a time. It's just a story about people accepting their fate, accepting their role in destiny, and seeing it through to the end. But I like the note that it ends on, when Zelda and Link are talking on the top of the statue of the goddess, where everything started. And Zelda says, I want to stay here. I want to look over the Triforce. I want to stay down here. I want to feel solid ground beneath my feet. And she looks to Link and says, What do you want to do, Link? What are you going to do? And Link looks at her and smiles, and then they don't tell you anything. Oh gee, I wonder what happened next. Presumably, Link and Zelda were eventually together. They lived down there. And I believe the assumption, or the idea, is that they would eventually create Hyrule. And generations and generations would go by, and then you eventually get to Ocarina of Time, where I started this little journey through these games, which is pretty crazy to think about. What's also crazy is that this game, the last two games that we're playing before Tears of the Kingdom, we're playing the game that takes place at the beginning of the timeline, and the game that takes place at the end. I saw a theory by Zeltic. I think it's Zeltic. Really good Zelda theory channel. He comes up with some pretty crazy ideas, but they're always coming from a place that of reason. I feel like, oh, you could reasonably draw this line from A to B, right? He has a theory that Tears of the Kingdom might be the thing that loops everything back around, that the Ouroboros symbol in the Tears of the Kingdom title spread is supposed to represent, obviously represents this endless cycle, the snake eating his own tail, right? His theory is that that Tears of the Kingdom is going to loop everything back around, and it's going to go from Tears of the Kingdom to eventually Skyward Sword, and the Zelda timeline will not be the straight line going down, but it will instead be a loop that keeps repeating over and over again. Which of course, again, it's like we've been talking about. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Where is the start point to a cycle that loops back within itself and never ends? Who knows? Maybe it's as cryptic as a goddess sitting on the edge of time. I have my trouble with this game, Skyward Sword. Is it the Zelda game I think people wanted when this game came out? No. Is it the best one? No. But my gosh, if this is what the worst Zelda game looks like, my oh my. The Zelda series is something else. And again, a lot of great ideas, and without this game, I don't think you get Breath of the Wild without this game. It was a while until Breath of the Wild came out. No Zelda game. Well, technically Breath of the Wild was a Wii U game. I was gonna say no Zelda game on the Wii U, but it was a Wii U game. The stamina, crafting, material system, upgrading, all that stuff. This game. People need to respect this game, I don't think it's the first game that comes to people's minds when they think of Zelda. It's not the first game on anybody's list, I don't think. But there's no way you can leave it out, Just like everything else. It's a game about time and how it changes things. Probably though, one of the more lighthearted ones. I would say most lighthearted would probably have to be Wind Waker, right? Just the whole vibe of that game. But this game has such a... I would say Wind Waker is lighthearted, but it has its darkness. I would say this game has its darkness, but it has a unbridled optimism. It feels like an adventure. You're going on an adventure, and you're having a time. you're making the most of it, You see dragons and people of all walks in life. You go from lush forests to the top of volcanoes to the middle of deserts, going through desert temples, mines, an ocean stuck in the past. All these things you do, It feels like a legend. What a legend it was. What a journey. I think that's all I have to say. If you liked this, stick around. There's plenty more where this came from coming up next. big ones for last. Breath of the Wild. If you want to see more things coming in the future, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment. Let me know what your Zelda favorite game is. Wow, that's crazy. Let me know what your favorite Zelda game is. I'd be curious. If your favorite Zelda game is this one, let me know why. I don't think you'd be wrong. I don't think you'd be wrong for having any of these games as your favorite. And leave a thumbs up and thumbs down if you like. All sorts of things coming in the future. Finishing this legacy, got a Pikmin legacy gotta do before that game comes out. Got tons of things on the horizon. Things are gonna get intense. Scheduling's gonna get intense, but I don't plan on dropping this, so stay tuned. Don't forget, if you got people that are important to you, don't forget to go make some time for them. Because time just keeps going. See you next time.